Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Tonight we are going to be doing a two-part dinner stream prep. So the first part we are going to be prepping our chicken that we'll be roasting up in the oven, and we will be making some scalloped potatoes, and then in a little bit after our second part we'll finish up the rest of our meal. So let's start by getting our chicken kind of seasoned up and ready to roast. So I have one yellow onion here. I'm going to kind of take off this whole outer ring of skin. There we go. Of course, it's like not wanting to come off for me today. There we go. And looks like we got a little brown part. We'll cut that part off. And then I'm going to kind of create some little onion kind of discs. And then pop this little part right out here. We're going to save some to go inside our chicken, but I'm going to start with these little onion discs, and we're going to place them here in our pan because we're going to rest our chicken on top of it. And this is going to act kind of as a buffer, help kind of get some air underneath the chicken as well, and also not prevent it from getting so much heat underneath where you can burn the bottom part. So it's kind of like a natural trivet. So, woo, pop that one out. Okay, we've got our little onion base here to rest our chicken on. Pick this up because I will step on it. And we're going to save this last part to go into our chicken. And I've got a lot of fresh oregano. I have Greek oregano and standard oregano. I'm going to keep this big one is going to go inside my chicken as whole. And then these littler ones, I'm going to kind of de-leaf and chop it up. And then we're going to mix together some olive oil, lemon juice, garlic salt, and mince up onion and kind of make this nice little herby flavor to go all around our chicken. And I'm just keeping it really simple today. I'm doing just a lemon, oregano, onion, garlic kind of flavor to our chicken. Simple but delicious. And I think we're going to use both fresh and dried oregano, and that's just going to give us a lot of really lovely flavors in there. There we go. Again, taking off all of these leaves. And then we are also going to prep up our scalloped potatoes because that always takes a hot minute in the oven to cook up. There we go. So these I'm going to keep whole to go into my chicken. I'm actually going to thread them through this little loop here. And let's mince these herbs up with that little teeny bit of onion. And I'm going to try to get this as nice and fine as possible so that I can have just little fine leaves that I kind of put all over the skin and underneath it to really season it up. And then we'll have that big kind of shoot of oregano to create a more aromatic middle. And this is about a 6-pound chicken that I'm using today. And it's going to just take about an hour and 15 minutes in the oven at 425 to kind of roast up. But it will be delicious and juicy and full of flavor. Here we go. Okay, so I've got that herb and that minced up onion nice and pretty fine here. So I'm going to pick it up and put it in my bowl. And then let's get our garlic here. We are going to add in a pretty big scoop of garlic here. That is about a tablespoon. So it'd probably be about like 8 cloves minced up. And I've got my lemon. We're going to use a whole lemon in here. I'm going to juice it, and then we're actually going to shove the half of these after we've juiced it into our chicken as well. but we want to use this juice in our kind of our marinade that's going to go over it. But the rinds will add, and that little bit will add an extra lemon flavor as well. Just grab out some of these seeds that I see right here on top and get, again, all this lovely lemon juice out. And let me pick out, again, I thought I got all the seeds, but it was a very seedy lemon. Okay, and we want to keep that one as well. Now we're going to add in some black pepper. I'm going to add in about a teaspoon of black pepper. And then I'm going to add in about a tablespoon of garlic salt. Good shake over. And then we're going to add in some more onion powder. I'm going to add in about a tablespoon of onion powder. And then we also have some dried oregano. And I'm just going to add in about a teaspoon of dried. And now we're going to add in about 2 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil, which there's just a little bit left in this bottle. So brought out my second one. Here we go. And now we've got this kind of herby mix that will be so full of delicious flavor for our chicken. Okay, now I've got my chicken here kind of resting. What I'm going to do, we're going to put it over here and rest it on top of our onions.
Yeah, question. What brand of olive oil do you use?
This is actually, I honestly typically buy whatever's on sale. That one's Target's brand. I go through so much olive oil that I really don't waste the money to buy the expensive ones because I just go through probably a big jug a week, and it's, they're all pretty similar. Now, if you're going to have to dip your bread in, that's something you want to splurge on. But for just using and cooking, I find the cheaper one works well. But for dipping, something different. So I put in about 2 spoons of my marinade into the inside the cavity of our chicken here. And now I'm going to shove that onion that we had reserved and those lemon halves in there as well, plus those sprigs of oregano. And now here's kind of the fun part. I'm going to grab a handful of my marinade. And again, it's pretty oily and greasy because it's that. And we're going to rub the bottom of it. That way our bottom or the back of the chicken, I don't know why I keep wanting to call it a turkey, it has a lot of great flavor. And now I'm going to kind of reach my hands up inside the chicken here and gently separate that top skin from the chicken. This is going to allow us to put this marinade underneath that skin, which will trap it in, and it's going to give you a really delicious and flavorful chicken. And this is really the tip to getting so much flavor in there.
You have a question. What's in the marinade?
The marinade's super simple. Fresh oregano, garlic, some minced up onion, pepper, garlic salt, olive oil, and a little bit of onion powder. So really simple, but it's going to be very flavorful. Here we go. So again, I'm pushing this all the way around, and then I'm going to try to get it into where I have the little drumsticks in there as well. And again, it's just taking your finger and carefully separating that skin from the chicken to add those flavors in. And this is a very hands-on approach. There's really no way you can do this without putting your hands inside the chicken and really getting it, but it is going to make all the difference in the flavor of your chicken. You will not have a dry chicken. It will be very, very moist and delicious. So now I'm going to take the rest of this kind of marinade that I have, and we're going to spread it over, kind of put it on top of it. But we got a lot of it underneath, and this is just going to allow that top skin to get extra crispy. Looking beautiful. Okay. I'm going to go wash my hands up really good. And let me move my meat cutting board out of the way since we don't need that. And one thing before we put this in the oven is I'm going to mix up some chicken bouillon into some water here. And we're gonna pour some into the base of my little roasting pan because that is going to give a steam bath. So it will steam up and help keep that chicken nice and moist, and add a little bit of flavor, but it will also, you'll still get a crispy skin on it. So I'm not going to use all of this broth. I'm going to use some of this in my my potatoes. Scoot up a little bit more, but I do want to add some in here. And we're just going to put a nice thin bit on the bottom of our roasting pan so that as this cooks up, this will steam up and really flavor our chicken to make it absolutely delicious. And this is the chicken bouillon that it's going to give you more flavor. We're going to use this. You could use regular chicken broth. You can even use, if you want to have a more aromatic flavor, you could put beer in there or white wine. Those will all give you some more aromatic flavors. And you'd have to use a little bit more because that would cook off a little bit faster. But again, delicious. Just add a teeny bit more. And as you can see, I just have a really thin layer, and it's not even touching the chicken because we have that onion acting as like a natural flavorful trivet, which will help flavor the chicken up. Let's go pop this in the oven and let it start roasting, and then we can work on our potatoes. So this turkey, or not turkey, I keep calling it a turkey. It is a chicken, guys. This chicken takes about an hour and 15 minutes at 425. So I've got my oven nice and preheated. Now we're gonna place this guy right here and we're gonna let it roast. Actually, I'm gonna rotate it sideways so I can see it better. And we're gonna let that kind of cook up. I like it to be right up on top on there to get that nice flavor. Sometimes if you notice your skin after cooking it for a while gets a little brown, just go in there and put a piece of aluminum foil lightly over the top, and that will keep it from getting too brown and crispy. But hopefully with the steam bath in there, that helps keep it kind of nice and like golden brown. Okay, guys, let's get our potatoes ready for our scalloped potato au gratin. Here, I've got a bunch of baby gold potatoes here. And we're going to thinly slice them and layer them around in here. Because I'm using baby gold, all you had to do is give them a quick wash, which I did before stream. And then we are just going to slice them thinly and lay them in our baking dish to cook up in a mixture of butter, cream, and chicken broth. I'm going to cut off the ends because, again, I just want nice kind of thin potato slices. If you cut them too thick, this will take forever to cook. And potato au gratin already takes forever to cook. It's not something that cooks up quickly. It takes like pretty much as long as the chicken will take to cook up. So don't leave them too thick. Nice and thin. And essentially they get soft in the cream in the chicken broth mixture. But then they'll have like a really flavorful deliciousness. And I think I'm actually going to put a cheese topping on this during the last like 15 minutes of its baking so that we have a nice ooey gooey cheese crust on it. Because who doesn't love cheese? Okay, so let's get our potatoes here sliced nice and thin. And then we're going to arrange them nicely on our dish. I'm not going to necessarily cut up all of these potatoes, but I want to have enough with me in case I need them. And then we're just going to do, again, kind of really simple seasoning on here. Just garlic, salt, and black pepper, a little onion powder. Keeping it really simple. But we're going to have what's in there. I'm going to also make caramelized carrots and onions. We'll bake up a sourdough loaf later. And I'm thinking I want to do a green vegetable. So I'm thinking that I'm going to do Brussels sprouts and bacon because I haven't done those in a while. And I have some Brussels sprouts that need to be cooked up. So I'm thinking that's going to finish off the rest of our dinner tonight later during the second part. You know, we have to do it in 2 parts because there's just going to be a big chunk of time where the chicken and these are cooking that there's just no prep work to do, which is kind of nice for a nice Sunday dinner. Okay, so let's start. I'm going to start by kind of sliding them apart and arranging them in here as nicely as I can. Once you get more in here, the shape will kind of come together. But make sure you have enough kind of space between them. You know, the tighter you pack it, the longer it's going to take to cook. And now, trust me, this is a dish that you can't just whip up quickly. It always takes longer to cook these potatoes than you think, but so delicious when you have it done. I always feel like growing up, scalloped potatoes was like a big dish that I had growing up a lot. But I want to say the ones that we had growing up were not homemade. It was like in the box scalloped potatoes. And I don't know if that's actually a thing or if I'm just misremembering it as a kid. But I swear it was like a box of like freeze-dried potatoes that you made up into scalloped potatoes. But I remember them as a kid and I thought they were delicious. This is a much better version of it. You know, I feel like we eat more bougie nowadays than we did back then. My kids eat more bougie than I ever ate as a kid. So they will not be enjoying boxed scalloped potatoes, but they get to have mine. There we go.
You have several people saying yes, they were then.
Okay, good. I have not seen them since, but again, I don't really go into like the boxed processed foods area. But I distinctly remember them being in a box and thinking they were the best thing ever. That, along with Hamburger Helper, so good. I'm pretty sure I probably wouldn't like Hamburger Helper nowadays, but I have some really fond memories of it as a kid. You know, all you needed was a pound of ground beef and a box and some milk and butter, and bam, quick dinner in 20 minutes. I will say my children have never had Hamburger Helper before. I don't even think they know it exists. But when they get to college one day, they might. There we go. We're going to put our last little potatoes in here. And again, we're just kind of putting them cutely around in a little thing. Now, if I was going to show this as like a showstopper, I would definitely make sure that I spent a little more effort making sure that they scalloped around perfectly. But as I always tell everyone, I care more about how food tastes than how it looks. That's why I would never do good on any of those cooking shows, because they'd all be like, your presentation looks like a donkey. That's, I feel like, what Gordon Ramsay would say to me. There we go. Okay, so we've got our base in here. Looking great. Okay, I'm going to probably use a little bit more. I'm going to put a little bit more water in here. We're going to start with about a cup of broth, and I'm going to pour that around the base of this. And you want to use chicken broth or a vegetable flavored broth because that's going to give a lot of great flavor into these potatoes. And then we're going to do we'll do a cup of cream because I'm probably going to need to add a little bit more liquid in here. But I always like to start with less liquid and then check to see that I have the right amount and add more, because it's kind of hard to take the liquid out once you've poured it in. Let's pour I think we actually might do fine with just a cup. So essentially you want your potatoes to kind of go up. You don't want them completely submerged, but kind of where they are partially submerged and they're still sticking out the top. So we're going to pour off, since I have just about a tablespoon left in here, which is perfect. I'm glad I didn't add any more broth. Now I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of onion powder over the top of this. It's going to give it a nice kind of savory flavor and help kind of create a little bit of a crust. I'm going to use about a good tablespoon of it because I want that flavor really in there and delicious. Now I'm sprinkling this all on top because it's going to bubble and then it will swirl in and mix, but it will make sure that we have a nice kind of flavorful crust on it, but it will all get absorbed in there. And we're going to be putting some pats of butter over the top. This is not a diet food, by the way. This is very hearty, very delicious, very rich. It's a Sunday dinner food, not, things. I added about, I think maybe a little bit more. We want about, this is a lot of potatoes. So you want, maybe a teaspoon and a half of garlic salt, maybe a little bit more, because you got to season up all the potatoes. We're going to put a little bit of pepper, just a nice little sprinkle over the top. And then we're going to do just a shake of oregano. You could also use thyme or parsley. I like to add just a small amount of herb in there, but not very much. And then, did I not stick my butter out? Let me go grab my butter. I thought I grabbed it out, but I guess I did not. And now we're going to take some butter. We're going to slice it thinly, and we're going to place it on top. And that butter is going to melt over all of those herbs and onto that. And it's going to create this really rich and decadent potato dish and this is going to feed a lot of people. It may look little here, but this will easily feed 10 people because it is such a rich dish. You don't take a huge helping of it. You take a smaller helping, and for tonight, we're feeding 9. So I've got this plus all the other kind of dishes that we're making with it. But it is delicious. And I think we use like 8 baby or small or Yukon Gold potatoes in here. So, and I'm going to use about a 1/4 cup of butter, but I'm going to slice it thinly into pretty thin pats because I want to be able to place it all over. And this is going to help give the potatoes a nice kind of golden brown crust on the top, but kind of prevents them from getting too thin. But it will be delicious. And as this cooks, the liquid again is going to evaporate out of there, and it's going to create this just really soft but flavorful potatoes, or scalloped potatoes, potato au gratin, so many different names to call it. So let's place this in the oven. I'm going to pop this in the oven right underneath my my chicken as it's roasting. Because this oven's set at 425, that placing it underneath it will prevent it from getting too brown, but keep it nice and hot and bubbling it. And then towards the end, I will rotate my chicken and put that up top to get a nice little crust on it. Well, guys, we are done with the first part of our dinner prep. So join us back here in about 40 minutes. 7:30. And while off screen, because we'll check on it a little bit. I popped my sourdough in the oven, so it's doing that first bake at 500 with the lid on, and in a couple minutes it will beep, and we'll take the lid off and do the second bake. But now we're going to finish up the rest of our dinner stream, or the rest of dinner prep tonight, and at the end we'll have a delicious meal. So we are going to make our Brussels sprouts and bacon, our caramelized carrots and onions, and then just finish up all the other stuff. So let's start with our bacon here. We're going to snip it up into our frying pan, let it start to saute up, because this is what we're going to cook our Brussels sprouts in. And this is probably a 1/3 pound of bacon, not a 1/3 pound, like a 1/4 pound of bacon here. I'm just going to snip into small pieces so that we'll have just little bacon kind of bits throughout our Brussels sprouts. And then this grease, again, will fry up those Brussels sprout leaves and just make them absolutely delicious. This is my family's favorite way to eat Brussels sprouts because, honestly, anything with bacon is delicious. Okay, so again, get these all snipped up. I'm going to wash my hands real quick. And I'll turn that on and we'll start letting that cook up. And I'm going to put that over, I'm going to start it on about a 7, and then we'll turn it down and let it kind of cook on a medium heat.
You have a question? Have you ever done bacon wrapped Brussels sprouts?
I have not done bacon wrapped Brussels sprouts. I feel like that would be a lot of work. But I've done bacon wrapped asparagus, and that is delicious. With the Brussels sprouts, what I typically do is and this is kind of what makes them a little bit of a pain working with them, is I quarter all of my Brussels sprouts. So I chop off the little stump that grows off of the big, stalk, because, Brussels sprouts grow up on this huge stalk and their little knobs out. So I always cut that little edge off because it's never good. And then I quarter each one so that when it fries up, it's going to like come apart and it will have just all this great flavor on it and has less of that bitter flavor. But I've never done a bacon wrapped one. But I might have to try that one day. I bet you my husband would love that. He would just probably pop a whole one in his mouth at a time. But I feel like bacon just makes so many things taste better. It's just such a delicious meat. Here we go. And it's really funny. One of my kids does not like bacon, and I just think it's the craziest thing. He's always like, can we have sausage instead? He just doesn't like bacon. It's crazy. Okay, so we're going to go through and slice off this little stump part, and then we're going to quarter each one. This is, again, the whole point of this is you're going to get that heart part of it, which is the firmer part, is going to be quartered, so that will get tender easily. And then you have your leaves essentially separate a lot easier when you're frying. Now, this is the way that I like to do it because it's simpler. It's not as crazy. My sister once asked me to prep her Brussels sprouts for her. And I first like, oh, yeah, sure, no problem. I can quarter a bunch of them. And this was for like 40 people because it was a Thanksgiving dinner. And I was like, yeah, it'll take a while, but that's fine. But she didn't want them quartered like She wanted me to literally strip off the leaves for every single Brussels sprout, like de-leaf them. It took me forever. And that was probably the last time I helped her in the kitchen. And I was like, not happening again. But we'll get these all prepped. And I find this is just the best way to get them that bitter taste out. So like just with like broccoli and cabbage, Brussels sprouts, when they're raw, they've got a little bit of that sulfury taste to it. So when you cut them and quarter them, that's going to allow you to cook up that middle part, which again has most of that flavor in it, which will mellow out the flavor and give it just a nicer thing. And it allows those leaves to separate, and those are what get nice and crispy in the bacon grease. Luckily, this isn't a huge batch of Brussels sprouts for us because we've got a bunch of different little sides today with dinner tonight. I'm like a fan of having lots of sides. So your plate is almost like a buffet plate versus having just like 2 to 3 sides. I am the person who is like 4 or 5. Give me more. I'm the person who loves all the sides. So I think what complements my husband and I, he's the one who's all about like the entree, the meat, the main part, and I'm all about all the little sides. I could just have a plate of sides and it would make me happy. Okay. We're just going to take a quick break here. I only have a few left, but I want to give my bacon. I'm going to turn it down now that it's starting to sweat to about a 4. And we're going to start kind of tossing our bacon, letting it separate apart so that it kind of gets nice and crispy. Once our bacon has sweat out most of its fat and is starting to get crispy, that's when we're going to throw in our Brussels sprouts. But you don't want to throw them in prematurely or that bacon will never get crispy. Okay. Let's check my timer here. Okay. In about a minute or 2, I'll turn my timer off, and then we're going to grab out our sourdough because we have it kind of cooking in the oven at 500 with the lid on. So it should have, that's the first initial part, and then it just has about 20 minutes left that will cook at 450. We started it early so that we should be able to cut into it and show you guys the crumb today. Now, hopefully everything turns out. I'm cooking it in this oven today. Normally, I always cook it in my other oven, but I got my chicken roasting and my potatoes in there. So I don't use this is my storage oven. I'm sure a lot of people who have double ovens They always have one oven's like their storage oven where they put all their baking sheets in it. As you can see, I had to pull them all out to use it. Okay, let me go. I'm going to go turn off my timer over here. Okay, and then I'm going to pull out my loaf right here, and we're going to take our peek at it. Take off the lid, and then we'll turn our temperature down. Okay. Oh, beautiful. Look at our lovely kind of peak on our crust there. It is looking gorgeous. Before I pop that in there, I'm going to turn my oven down or up to down to 450. And then, got it. This oven likes to sing to me. It has a very fun timer, I will tell you that. It's got quite a jingle to it. We're going to put it in at 450. And then I'm going to set my timer over there because I do not like the timer on this one. I know, it's crazy. But I'm going to set the timer and we're going to bake for 450 for 20 minutes. Okay, back. Let's give our broccoli, or not our broccoli, our bacon. We don't even have broccoli today. Our bacon a little stir here. It's starting to get a little crisping up. I'm going to put a little bit of butter in here to give it a bit more fat. Since this was just part of the bacon, sometimes if you have the leaner part, it doesn't sweat out enough fat and then it won't get crispy. I know it seems crazy to add more fat in bacon, but recently I have noticed that the bacon cuts are a lot leaner than they used to be, and they don't crisp up as much. They actually remain chewy. And if you don't have enough fat in there to crisp up the bacon, it doesn't give that great texture in it. So I find just adding in a teaspoon of butter gives you just enough to get that good crispy edge on it. Okay, we've got our Brussels sprouts all prepped and ready here. I'm going to toss my little tops here. And then we are going to start prepping our onions to caramelize for our caramelized onions and carrots. And then I have my carrots that we'll need to peel and chop up. And I have some fresh thyme that we're going to add in there. So it will just be delicious. Woo. Let's grab our yellow onion here. You want to use a yellow or a Valdalia or a sweet onion for this because they have the most sugar in them that are going to give you the nicest caramelizations and flavors that work really well. As I always said, avoid cooking with red onions. Red onions are great eaten raw or in dips and salsas and, on salads and burgers and stuff like that. But they are not great eaten like fried up or sauteed. They lose all of their flavor when you cook them up. And so then they're just really bland. I'm going to do a nice kind of thin slice on them because I want kind of long, stringy onions. I think they just kind of work well with the caramelized carrots and onions. Now, I'm using one, but this is a dish. If you love onions, you can go more. You can go two and just have lots of caramelized onions in it because those are just delicious. We're going to add in here, I want a good amount of olive oil, so about, I want to say, a tablespoon and a half for this because we're going to be sauteing. This is a big pan. And I'm just going to start kind of by breaking up our onions in here. There we go. And just helping them separate. We'll use our tongs here in just a second to help them separate some more, but I want a good start on it. Let's give our bacon a good stir. You can see it's starting to get a bit more crispy now, which is lovely. And this is what my husband wishes was just bacon. Brussels sprouts and bacon was just the bacon, a side of bacon that would make him happy. Okay, let's turn our skillet on here. I'm going to start it at high around a 7, and then we'll turn it down once our onions start to cook and caramelize. But I'm first going to kind of coat them in all of this oil, and then we'll do our little kind of chop on it to break them apart. Okay, let's do our prep. So I've got, let me take my right there. I've got several carrots here. I've got some white ones, one lonely purple one, and then a bunch of orange. We are going to peel them all first. This whole outer layer is going to be dry and not as nice in flavor. So just peel it all off. And then we'll chop up these carrots. I'm deciding whether I want to do discs or little like matched like stick type things, you know, just feel when we get there, what I feel like. Oh, we'll do sticks. We'll do little sticks. That's my preferred method. I think they look a little nicer, and they tend to keep their texture a little bit better. There we go. But if you don't want to do all the work of peeling these, you could definitely use baby carrots. You're just going to want to quarter them so they're a little bit thinner. Or they actually make these. They're fresh carrots, but they're called the microwavable carrots. So they come in a bag, and they're just like baby carrots that are really little. And those work well where you don't have to do any prep on them. Those are when I've got a big meal that I'm prepping and I don't want to do lots of individual prep work. I will get those. Use a long carrot. So let's get again all of this kind of woody texture off. Always peel your carrots because I missed a whole strip. That just won't have a good texture and a flavor. Once you remove this outer bit that's really dry, you're gonna have a really tender carrot underneath. And I'm a person who likes to have the colorful carrots. I just think they're fun. The orange carrots are actually the sweetest of the carrots, although they are not the original carrot. The original two carrots were the white and the purple carrots. And they were actually bred together to create the orange ones, which happened to be then became the most popular variety. And this was like back in like the 1600s. So it was like forever ago. But it's interesting that farmers knew how to do that stuff back then. Let's give all of this again a little stir, and then we're going to start chopping those guys up. Okay, our bacon is getting there. We've got some pretty good crispy bits, but I want to make sure they're all got a nice thing, because once we add those Brussels sprouts in there, that bacon will stop crisping up. Okay, let's get our carrots prepped and ready here. I'm going to cut off the tops here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to quarter them. And then we'll have these nice little carrot sticks. If I have a bigger chunk, I will cut that again, because you want them to be thinner so that they cook up faster and get tender faster, because you don't want a crunchy carrot. You want a tender crisp. So still has its good form. It's not mushy, but it's tender all the way through. So we'll get these going, because we'll saute these in our pan with our onions, but you've got to do your onions first, because onions, once you start adding in other vegetables, just kind of like with the bacon, it's going to stop caramelizing. So you need to make sure your onions get to the right point first. There we go. So, a couple carrots down. I actually think our bacon is just about ready. We have this nice kind of white boil or fry going on it. That means it's getting down to the last bit of liquid in the bacon, which means you're getting that nice kind of crispy bits to it. Okay. Get these. Then I'm going to take a quick pause on cutting up my carrots. Okay, these are looking pretty darn good. So let's add in our Brussels sprouts while we do this. And we're going to cook them all in that bacon grease, which is going to give them great flavor, and it's going to crisp them up. Just be careful. Sometimes when you throw your Brussels sprouts in there, if there's a little bit of residual water on from washing, they might pop at you. I tried to dry them as best as I could, but just always be careful. And now what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we coat all of them up in that bacon grease in there so that they'll absorb that flavor, and then they'll start kind of crisping up. and then just kind of lay them out flat. And the trick here is you don't want to stir them that often or move them around. You want them to sit and crisp up just like you would potatoes. So they can get a good saute on them. That's going to give them that great flavor. And then, we'll toss them. And then at the very end, we'll throw in some garlic salt. Our onions, you can see we're starting to get some caramelization on here. Look at that Brussels sprout caught over here. But we've got a little bit of this lovely browning occurring, and it's looking great. There we go. And actually, let's go take a quick peek at our chicken. I'm looking at my time because I want to make sure our chicken and our potatoes are doing well. Since you guys, if you weren't with us for the first stream, you may not have seen them in here. So I always just want to take a nice little peek. We are looking pretty good here. We're getting pretty close. Look at our lovely chicken there sauteing up. And then we've got our scalloped potatoes that are bubbling up and becoming delicious. We've got to let all of that liquid in the scalloped potatoes thing out. So in about, I'm going to say like 5 or so minutes, we'll take out that chicken, 5-10 minutes, because the chicken we cook for an hour and 15 minutes. And I think we got that in at about 6:40-ish. So I'll take that out because when we cook our chicken, you've got to let it sit for about 15 minutes before you carve in, because you never want to carve into a hot chicken. That will cause all of those natural, delicious juices to seep out and give you a drier end product. So we'll take it out in a few minutes, let it sit before we carve it, and then we'll let our potato au gratin, our scalloped potatoes, continue to steam out the rest of their little things, but they'll be delicious and tender. I always say for the scalloped potatoes, they always take a hot minute to cook. It's not something that just cooks up really quickly, but they are delicious and tender and will be fabulous. Okay, let's get these carrots. Then I'm going to actually give our here. I'm going to turn these down to about a 4 now that our onions are starting to get a really good kind of caramelization on them and a nice saute. I still need a little bit more on there. I want them a little bit browner before we add our onions in, but we're getting close to it. And soon we'll have our carrots done as well. Again, just make sure you don't have any super thick carrots because otherwise they will stay firm. And then we're going to saute our carrots in here. We'll add a little bit of butter after a while because we're going to make a kind of a sweetened carrot with a little bit of brown sugar. But we'll also add the savory with garlic salt and some fresh thyme. Okay. Looks like we've got our carrots all prepped up here.
Yeah, question. Do the kids actually eat what you make?
They do. Now, they all have, they'll eat some parts, but not every kid eats everything. Although I will say my little ones actually eat really well. And my son, my 13-year-old, he's a good eater. Let's flip this real quick. But they all will actually try everything and they eat it. Brussels sprouts are one of those things that half my kids like, and the carrots are my little boys, and my 13-year-old son loves the carrots, as well as my husband and my parents will be joining us for dinner. I am not a short order cook. My kids get what I make. But I always make sure that there is food on the plate that they like. So all the kids like the chicken. Then we also have the sourdough bread. Most of the kids love the potatoes, except for Evie. She does not like potatoes. So she loves the bacon and the Brussels sprouts. She typically picks out all the bacon and eats it. We're going to put our carrots in here, and I'm just going to kind of stir them around and get those onions kind of all there and kind of push them around so they can start sauteing on the bottom. And then let me grab my lid. We're going to put our lid on here, and that's going to help it kind of steam it up and tenderize it while still keeping it kind of crisp. So let me grab my big lid, and then we're going to go grab our chicken out of the oven. Okay. Let me grab this. And I've got my pot holders over, or my trivets. Okay, don't want to take that timer off. That's for our bread. But look at this. It is looking gorgeous. And here is our beautiful chicken that we marinated with garlic and onions and lemon and fresh oregano, some dried oregano. You've got like the crispy skin, and it is looking delicious. Now the trick here is we've got some of this lovely juice. Part of that is from the broth we put in there, but we want to actually ladle some of that up onto our chicken right now while we wait. That helps kind of hydrate it and keep it really, really delicious. So I'm just going to use a spoon. We're going to just kind of baste this over because, again, we want to let this chicken sit for about 15 minutes before we carve into it. So, every few minutes, I'm going to just ladle this juice over it, and that's just going to bring those flavors right back into it.
Yeah, what type of pans are you using?
So, these are both hex-clad. I absolutely love them. I got my hex-clad about 2 years ago, and I have yet to damage them. So they are truly like indestructible, and they are really great non-stick pans. And being that said, they clean up so easily. So that's what kind of really makes them really nice is not only do they cook really well, but the cleanup is easy. And I've got my 12-inch, 10-inch, 8-inch, and then I have a griddle pan. So I absolutely love them. I actually have them in my Amazon storefront if you guys want to check that out, because I do highly recommend them. They are, I will say, probably the first true non-stick pan I have that I haven't destroyed. I'm a little rough on my cooking stuff. So if it can, survive daily use for me, it's pretty good. So we've got this. We're going to let it kind of cook up. We're going to add in our garlic salt here in just a little bit and a little bit of onion powder. Our chicken here is looking fabulous. We've got this nice, I'm going to just kind of show our nice kind of crispy skin underneath all of that. You can see it is our fresh oregano. We've got a little, the crispiness is from that onion powder on it. But again, just perfect, delicious, moist
You have a request to go over how you prep it?
Yes. So for this one, what we stuffed in, first we made our little marinade using juice from 1 whole lemon, about a tablespoon of garlic, onion powder, some minced up onion, a whole bunch of oregano, probably about 2 tablespoons of minced up oregano, garlic, salt, pepper, and what we did is we rubbed it in the cavity, we rubbed it underneath, we rubbed it on the top. Then you stick your hand underneath the skin of the chicken and you separate it and you rub it underneath there. That's going to allow those flavors to seep in and allow you to have this really lovely crispy skin, which is going to be the most delicious part. And gives you a lot of flavor. And then we poured a little bit of broth into our bottom of our pan so that it would steam cook to help keep it nice and juicy. And we placed our chicken on top, as you can see right here, on top of onions. And that allows it to not sit directly on the pan, so it allows the juices and everything to kind of seep out and flavor up as well. I'm going to put, again, just every so often, it's like you're basting a turkey here. Look at that. They're getting nice and tender now. The steam cooking really allows those carrots to cook up fast. One thing I love about, somebody asked about the hex-clad, is they all come with lids, and their lids have a little hole in it, which allows a lot of the liquid to come out. So it doesn't make your food soggy, but it still traps in enough moisture to kind of make it a nice steam tender. Let's start with our kind of making our glaze here now for our carrots. We're going to just put about a tablespoon of butter in here. You don't need much, because remember, we sauteed them in a little bit of olive oil. But that butter just helps the brown sugar kind of caramelize with the onions on there. So I'm making them sweet, but they're not going to be super sweet. Not like the southern candied carrots. they have just a little bit of brown sugar in there to really enhance the caramelization of the onions. But we're also going to add some onion powder and some garlic, salt, and fresh thyme to bring in some savory notes. So I'm going to put in about, I want to say maybe 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, and that's just about it. We're going to sprinkle it around. That's going to give you just a really slight sweet flavor to it, but that's going to bring out the natural sweetness in the caramelized onions as well as in the carrots. And then we're going to sprinkle a little bit of our garlic salt over. So a nice little sprinkle. And then I'm going to put some over our Brussels sprouts and bacon as well. There we go. You don't need to add much to your Brussels sprouts and bacon, but you need some because that bacon grease has a bit of salt in it. We're going to do some onion powder over our Brussels sprouts and bacon as well. Just a nice dusting. This is going to help crisp it up as well as give it a savory. And then again, a little onion powder on here. Helps kind of pull up some of that extra moisture and keeps it nice and savory. I'm going to start tossing it all together now. And then we'll throw on our fresh thyme here in just a little bit. It is looking fantastic. Okay, I'm going to go turn off my timer, and we're going to take our bread out of the oven. Let me turn this down. Okay, let me grab my pot holders here. And we're going to take this gorgeous loaf out of our oven here. Let me slide this right there. So we've got our beautiful sourdough here. I'm going to pull it out of my Dutch oven because this Dutch oven will stay nice and hot for like 20 minutes. And you want to keep a nice blonde crust on your sourdough. We're going to separate it from our parchment paper here. But look at our beautiful things. We've got our nice peak. There's our pretty wheat leaf design. And then our golden brown crust here. So absolutely delicious. And again, you take this out because if you leave it there, that's going to give you that hard, crunchy crust. You want it nice and soft and tender. Or let that sit, and towards the end, we're going to cut it open for you guys so you guys can see the crumb on it. Okay. Give this a little stir. You can see our brown sugar is already starting to kind of caramelize up in there. It's kind of making that nice glaze over it. I'm going to keep those tongs in there now that they've got a little sweetness to them. There we go. And let's toss. Beautiful. This is getting this nice little crispy fried edge on it. Here, I'll pull up one exactly how I love it. So just like that, you got that nice crispy sauteed edge on it. And that's what you get from letting it sit and not just stirring it constantly. I think a lot of mistakes people have when they're trying to saute is they stir too much and then they don't get this nice crispy edge. Okay, let's get our fresh thyme going into our carrots here. So I'm just going to literally pull off the little leaves and add them in here. I'm not going to chop them up. We're just going to add a bunch of little leaves, add this nice flavor, a little pop of green in here, but it will be lovely. I find that thyme actually plays really well with the caramelized carrots and onions. But it's not the easiest to pull off those leaves. It's a delicate spice. Now, you could always throw in full twigs if you want to, and then just fish them out, but I like to take a little bit of the time to take it off here. And then we will get ready to kind of get our chicken kind of carved up here and get our potatoes out of the oven in a little bit. And we're almost on that last final edges of cooking up dinner tonight. It's kind of crazy, great Sunday dinner, even though I was running around town all day. I drove back and forth. I spent 4 hours in the car today, driving to and from soccer practices. So it's been quite a busy day. Okay, we've got our fresh thyme in there. And you can see there are carrots. You can see how they're nice and tender. They've got a little bit of flexibility to them now, but still keeping their shape, so they're not mushy at all. They're tender, but still firm. Okay, those are beautiful. So I'm going to turn these down on very, very low. I've got those off. Let's get our chicken here. We're going to baste it one more time, and then we can kind of carve it. So again, this juice has so much flavor. So if you have leftover chicken, don't throw this juice away, like all this kind of from the thing. Take your leftover chicken and spoon this broth over it. That is going to keep it from drying out, and it will keep it really delicious for the next day. Okay, now let me get my cutting board here all prepped up. I have a little trick that I do when I'm carving up meat. I'm going to grab. This just helps prevent it from getting juices everywhere. So we're just going to take my cutting board here. I'm going to place it inside my baking sheet. So now when I put the chicken in here to carve it up, any of those extra juices will just roll into the baking sheet, which will save you a big headache later instead of having to deal with it on your counter. Let me just throw these potatoes or carrot scraps away. And then we're going to take it out and we'll start trimming it. You grab a good hefty tong. Reach in here. We're going to pick it up. And then we're going to just kind of pull out what's in the middle. You can see our lemon. And then we've got our onion here, our oregano, and a lot of our lovely flavors here, the other part of that. Just always, you want to take that out. It has a lot of the great flavor in it. And then I'm just going to, we'll let it sit one more second. I'm going to pour a little bit of our broth over it because I'm going to cut it literally right when we're about to serve it so that it stays really juicy. Okay. Let's go grab our scalloped potatoes out of the oven. They should have reduced enough to where they should have this lovely kind of thick, creamy basting to it and a nice little top to it. Looks beautiful. Look at that delicious, creamy scalloped potatoes. This was about 8 golden potatoes that we covered with about a cup of chicken broth, a cup of cream, and some butter. And as you can see, it was bubbling now, but as it is, the cream is already settled down. And there's around it, and you have just a nice little crust on there from where that cream is bubble up. I was debating about whether I wanted to do a cheese crust or not, but I opted not to. But they are looking fabulous. Okay, let's cut into our bread. We'll show you guys the crumb because it's been a good amount of time. It's steamed out, and then we can serve up our dinner here. Still, we've got this nice little crunchy crust, and look at this gorgeous, let me take my glove off here. It's not that hot. Gorgeous crust and crumb on our things. We've got this, it's nice and crunchy. You see how soft and pillowy it is? Delicious. So let me cut up a slice here that we can have with our dinner on our plate. There we go. So we've got a good hunk. And let's plate up. Okay. I'm going to first cut my chicken, and we'll bring a leg over here that way, and then we can do our thing. So we're going to kind of just go in here and make break through. You just got to get, there we go. Okay. So we've got our delicious chicken here that has got that nice flavor and our marinade on it. We are going to slide that over here. We're going to serve it with our Brussels sprouts and bacon, and that's kind of, they're cooked up in that bacon grease, are caramelized carrots and onions that are filled with delicious brown sugar, garlic, and fresh thyme. And let me grab my little shovel so that we can have a lovely scoop of our scalloped potatoes and this nice kind of creamy base sauce here. And then, of course, our nice big chunk of sourdough bread for a delicious dinner made in like an hour and a bit. A lot of it is just sitting time. But again, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on the page. So if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to that page, search for what we made. So we've got our lemon oregano roasted chicken with scalloped potatoes, caramelized carrots and onions, and our Brussels sprouts and bacon, and of course our homemade sourdough bread. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets. We've got our cutting boards, our knives, our hex-clad pans, all the different things that we use in the kitchen for you guys to check out. But again, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe.